Gold cakes are eye-catching and elegant, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you 20 ways to use edible gold on your cakes. I'll use 20 different cakes in this tutorial, and I have a more detailed tutorial for each one, so if you see something you like, check the video description for the link for the tutorial for that cake. I'll start with some designs using luster dust, which is an edible powder that you can use alone or use it to make paint. To make paint, add a few drops of vodka to make quite a thick paint, almost a paste. When you lift your paintbrush out of the gold paint, you should leave some texture in the paint, otherwise it's too thin and won't give you a nice bold colour. You can use a clear extract like lemon extract if you don't want to use vodka, but it won't be quite as shiny. Use gold paint on buttercream frosting by chilling the cake after frosting it to set the frosting. For this cake, I've carved a leaf design which I'm painting, but you can also paint freestyle onto a cake or trace around a shape with a toothpick to guide you as you paint. I use my 4-minute buttercream to frost all of my cakes, and the link for that recipe is in the video description and in the top of the screen, but you can also use ganache or whipped cream or meringue buttercreams or fondant for most of the techniques in this video. You can apply several coats of gold paint until you get the colour you want. Gold paint dries really quickly as the alcohol evaporates, and then you can add whatever details you like these pretty flowers piped with Russian tips. As well as smooth frosting, gold paint works really well on textured edges, like these piped ruffles, and on the uneven top edge of frosting on this cake. Chill the cake to set the buttercream, which takes about an hour in the fridge, and then use dabbing motions with a paintbrush to create a pretty gold edge. For delicate ruffles like this, it's best to use a thin paintbrush, but for a wider surface like this top edge, a thicker paintbrush will be much quicker to cover this larger area. With this technique, everyone will ask you how you made gold buttercream, and the answer is surprisingly simple. Pipe whatever shape you want onto parchment paper or wax paper, and then freeze it for a few minutes to set the buttercream. Paint it with edible gold paint, checking it from every angle to make sure you've got into all of the nooks and crannies of the shape. This is quite a slow process, but definitely worth it. Chill the buttercream again if it warms up while you're painting because it needs to be very firm. Then attach the gold buttercream to your cake with a dot of fresh buttercream. If you're enjoying this tutorial, please click the thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel for a new cake decorating tutorial every week. Paint gold onto fresh fruit to add some bling to an otherwise simple cake topper. Dry the fruit completely with a paper towel and then attach the fruit to your cake with dots of buttercream to act as glue. Brush the fruit with gold paint, and the colour of the gold paint will be boldest if the fruit is really dry. The gold looks especially nice on textured fruit, like berries. Macarons have been trendy for a while and come in every colour imaginable, but a gold macaron on your cake will really grab everyone's attention. Making one is easy. Just spin the macaron between your fingers as you paint the sides and the tops of the shells. You can also do this before adding filling and pressing the two shells together. Just wait until the gold paint dries before you touch it. Painting over a white, yellow, or brown macaron is easier than a colour like fuchsia or blue. For this cake, I combined painted gold with gold leaf, which I'll cover later in this tutorial, and I think using both types of gold together works really well. For perfect gold writing on cakes, imprint letters into your cake to spell out your words. This is buttercream and I've chilled it to set it before doing this. Use a very thin paintbrush to paint the letters gold. The indented letters will help guide your paintbrush to keep the gold within the letters, but if you do get any smudges outside of the letters, use a clean paintbrush dipped in vodka to brush the smudges off the cake. If you're going to place any other decorations on the cake, like these buttercream flowers I'm piping, I'd suggest doing your lettering first so that you know exactly how much space the writing will take up on your cake, and then you can use the writing to centre your decorations around. This lettering technique works on smooth frosting, but also lightly textured frosting, like this bear, which I stenciled onto the cake, and then used a spatula to add some random grooves into the frosting like fur. These are sweet stamp letters, and they're a bit tricky to get out of their cases, so I like to pick them up by wrapping a piece of tape around my fingers with the sticky side facing outwards. You have to press the letters very firmly into buttercream for this to work, and if the buttercream is soft, you won't get neat imprints of the letter, so you'll have to leave the frosting to set for longer. Create gold drips by making ganache using any chocolate, white, milk, or semi-sweet. If I'm using white chocolate, I like to add a tiny drop of brown gel colour to make the drip closer to gold before I start, because you need less gold paint to cover up brown than white. You can apply your drip with a spoon, a condiment bottle, or put it in a Ziploc bag and cut off a corner like this. Apply your drip to a cold cake that's been in the fridge, and the coldness will help the drips stop before they go all the way down to the bottom of the cake. After applying the drip, put the cake back in the fridge to set the ganache drip, and when it's firm, paint it with gold paint. You might need to paint a few layers in some areas to cover the drip completely, and when you've finished, it will look like you poured something gold straight over the cake. For an unusual drip effect, try marbling different colours of ganache with edible gold paint, stirring them together just once or twice so that they don't blend together. Spoon the drip over the cake, letting it run down the sides, and you'll be able to see all of the ganache colours in each drip with pretty gold veining from the gold paint. For the top of the cake, drizzle your colours on and then spread them as little as possible to cover the top of the cake. Gold paint works really well for stenciling, as long as you secure your stencil to the cake, wrapping it tightly and pinning it in place. If you don't do this and try to hold it in place, any slight movement will cause your design to smudge. Your cake needs to be refrigerated before using a stencil so that the pressure from the stencil doesn't damage the frosting. Dab gold paint into the stencil design with a paintbrush or a sponge, and when you peel the stencil off, your gold design will make any frosting classier. You can use stencils with just luster dust too, without mixing it with alcohol to make paint. Brush the dust onto the stencil with a wide powder brush and create shimmery gold patterns on your frosting. With luster dust, you can make golden spheres to use as cake toppers. Pour some luster dust into a Ziploc bag with any chocolates, like chocolate-covered malt balls, or truffles with a chocolate coating like Lindt balls, and then shake them around in the bag to coat them with the gold dust. Pick them up with gloves to place on your cake so that you don't wipe the gold dust off with the warmth and natural oiliness of your fingers. Okay, gold leaf. It comes within backing sheets that you peel apart to reveal the edible gold. To attach random shaped pieces onto a smooth cake, peel back one of the backing sheets and then press the gold leaf against the cake. It should stick easily, but you can press against the other backing sheet to make sure it does. Your frosting needs to have set for this, because if it's soft and sticky, you'll almost definitely damage the frosting when you press the gold leaf into it. Make sure you buy edible gold leaf, since you can get gold leaf for decorating all sorts of non-edible projects too. Gold leaf makes a simple frosted cake look instantly glamorous. To apply gold leaf to textured frosting, you need a bit more control over how much you apply and where you apply it. So instead of transferring it from the backing sheet straight onto the cake, it's easier to use a paintbrush to pick it up. Because gold leaf is so thin, it will stick to your finger if you try to lift it up, and then it will be almost impossible to get off your finger to transfer onto the cake. You can apply gold leaf to textured frosting immediately after piping it, but you won't be able to apply any pressure to press it flat against the frosting, because you'll damage the piped frosting by smudging it, or it will pull away with your paintbrush. I like to let textured frosting set before adding gold leaf, leaving it in the fridge for about an hour, because when the frosting is hard, I can press the gold leaf onto it quite firmly with my paintbrush so that it molds to the texture and lies flat against it. If you like what you're seeing, take a look at my online cake school where I have lots of online courses and classes teaching various techniques and designs for cakes. I've put the link in the top of the screen and it's also in the video description below. Gold sprinkles are next. You can press sprinkles into the frosting on a cake, and you can do this straight after frosting the cake, while the frosting is still soft and sticky, but you have to be careful you don't press too hard or knock the cake with a stray finger, because you'll damage the smooth finish. For this cake, after piping mermaid-style scales onto the cake, I'm dipping my finger into water, shaking off any excess water, and then pressing my finger into a sprinkle mix. The water makes the sprinkles stick to my finger. When I press my finger into the frosting, angling it around to reach a wider area on the cake, the sprinkles transfer from my finger onto the cake because the frosting is stickier than my finger. You can place sprinkles individually as well, like these gold balls. Sprinkles add texture and detail to a cake, and who doesn't love a bit of gold bling? You can still apply sprinkles even if the frosting has set, like on this cake, where the design was made with wrapping paper, and for that technique I had to chill the frosting. To apply several sprinkles at a time, I'm using the same trick with water to stick the sprinkles to my finger. The frosting on the cake isn't sticky anymore, but with quite a bit of pressure, you can push the sprinkles into the frosting and they'll stick. Sprinkles are great for outlining shapes, like this star, which I've carved out of the buttercream frosting on this cake. The frosting has set, so I'm brushing the edge of the star with some water to make it sticky, and then gently pressing some gold sprinkles into it. Some larger gold sprinkles make a nice top and bottom border for this cake too. These fancy gold cookies are a unique topper for cakes. I'm using edible gold glitter for these, and after pulling the cookie sandwiches apart, I'm piping some buttercream on and then reattaching the cookies and rolling them in my edible glitter. The glitter sticks to the frosting I've just piped on. As well as being delicious toppers, the glitter makes these cookies look beautiful too. Meringue pops are another delicious cake topper. My recipe for these is on britishgirlbakes.com and in the video description. Pipe the meringues onto parchment paper and immediately scatter some sprinkles or edible glitter over them, while the meringue is soft and sticky. Push cookie sticks into the meringues before you bake them. Another way to do this is to place a stick down on the parchment paper and then pipe the meringue over the top. And after they've baked and cooled, push the sticks into your cake. Adding gold leaf to these is a nice touch as well. For homemade sugar lollipops, pour cooked sugar onto parchment paper and then add sprinkles. My recipe for these is on britishgirlbakes.com as well. Push a cookie stick into the sugar before it sets, and then leave them to cool and harden. Push the sticks into your cake to add height and metallic texture. To make gold sprinkled balls, coat a chocolate malt ball in melted chocolate to make it sticky, and then roll it in a bowl of gold sprinkles. These are tiny nonpareil sprinkles. Place them on parchment or wax paper to set, and then pipe some swirls of frosting onto your cake and push the sprinkle balls into them to attach them to the cake. Finally, a gold sprinkle explosion. When you assemble your cake, cut a circle out of the middle of every layer except the top layer. I'm using a round cookie cutter for these so that all of the holes are the same size. You can use these cut-out circles to make mini cakes if you don't want to waste them. After building your cake except for the final layer, pour sprinkles into the hole in the middle, going right up to the top of the cake, and then place the final layer on top. Frost and decorate your cake, and when you cut into it, the sprinkles will explode out. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial and that I've given you some fun ideas of how to decorate edible gold cakes. If you try any of these designs, please tag me on Instagram, britishgirlbakes, so that I can see your creations. Remember to subscribe to my channel for a new cake decorating tutorial every week.